Good afternoon. Let's bring you some breaking news this lunchtime. A judge has ruled that a 12-year-old boy in an induced coma who's been at the centre of a High Court dispute is brain dead and should have his life support switched off. Specialists at the Royal London Hospital say Archie Battersbee has shown no discernible brain activity, but his parents had previously insisted their son is still in there.
This is a sad and difficult time for Archie's family, and our thoughts and sympathies are with them as they come to terms with what has happened. In line with the guidance issued by the court, our expert clinicians will provide the best possible care while life support is withdrawn. We are also ensuring there is time for the family to decide whether they wish to appeal before any changes to care are made.
I am devastated and extremely disappointed by the judge's ruling. After weeks of fighting a legal battle, when I wanted to be by my little boy's bedside, basing the judgment on an MRI test, which is the first time ever, and that he's likely to be dead, is not good enough. This is believed to be the first time that someone has been declared likely to be dead by an MRI test. The medical opinion presented in the court was clear in that the whole concept of brain death is now discredited, and in any event, Archie cannot be reliably diagnosed as brain dead. I feel sickened at the hospital and the judge have failed to take the wishes of the family into consideration. I do not believe Archie has been given enough time. From the beginning, I have always thought, what is the rush? His heart is still beating, he has gripped my hand, and as his mother, and my gut instinct, I know my son is still there. Until it's God's way, I won't accept he should go. I know of miracles when people have come back from being brain dead. This case raises the significant moral, legal and medical questions as to when a person is dead. Why does this ruling today tell us about where society is at? We do intend on appealing. This is only the start. I will not give up my fight for my son. Thank you.
And Sky's Sadia Chowdhury is at the Royal London Hospital in East London for us now. And Sadia, very difficult statements to watch there. What are the significance within them in terms of where things could go from here? Clearly, another appeal is on the cards.
Well, it's a very unusual case, and it's been a very difficult few weeks for Archie Battersbee's family. I think today is the 7th or 8th day of court. They've had to endure weeks of hearings. The first initial fight, if I give you some background, was about the brainstem test. That is the test that has to be done formally before someone is declared brainstem dead in this country. And once that is done, then they can have their life support treatment withdrawn. Now, with Archie, the family had argued that it would create a big risk to him, and perhaps part of that test, which requires removing a ventilator, the patient off a ventilator, may actually lead to his death. So they had argued that they didn't want that test to go ahead. They failed in that pursuit because the judge ruled that there weren't enough risks to Archie to merit their case. But when the brainstem test was about to be conducted, the doctor, an independent doctor who came to do that test, said that there's a potential that Archie has a spinal injury. That complicates matters because that means that they could have some false negatives of that test. So they weren't able to conduct that test. Remember, that is the legal criteria for the UK, and they weren't able to conduct that. So that then brought the case back to court, with the trust arguing that they wanted to stick to civil proceedings standard of proof, which is just to establish that he is most likely dead, and that's unprecedented as far as we know. The family, of course, said that it's not good enough if a part of the brainstem is dead and the rest of his body is functioning. If his heart is beating and other parts of his brain are still working, then in such an unusual case as this, the court, they urged, was to follow the criminal standard of proof, and that means that the trust would have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Archie has died. Now, part of the trust's evidence was scans that they showed where they said that 50% of his brainstem was damaged and about 10 to 20% they said was in necrosis. That's the stage cells are at when they've either died or are decaying. The family said that wasn't good enough, that his heart is still beating and that the remaining 50% wasn't as severely damaged, and that they want more time. And they've said this throughout the whole process, that Archie hasn't been given enough time. You heard there his mother talking about that. They've also pointed to other cases, both here in the UK and in the US, where brainstem tests have established someone to have died, but then that person has made a recovery. So there's a case in the US, but particularly here in the UK, there's a case last year of a teenager who was declared brainstem dead, and just shortly before his organs were about to be extracted, he breathed by himself, and as I understand it, he is making a recovery right now. So Archie's family wants more time. They have said that they are going to appeal today's decision, but it does appear that the judge has ruled that she thinks Archie is brainstem dead and that therefore life support treatment can be withdrawn.